So here in Tennessee, we're kind of getting to that point in the year where some of these deer are starting to drop their antlers. And I figured with that being the case, we're getting pretty close to shed hunting season. So as a kind of precursor to that, I figured today we were gonna look at some of my sheds from over the years and yeah, kind of take a look at my entire shed collection. And also I've got my deadheads here that I found over the years of doing this. So we'll be taking a look at those too. And I've got one under the table that right here that it's pretty significant. If you watched a video that I made like last year, you would have seen it. But if not, get ready because it's a big one. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. So kind of first things first, we've got this match set here. Now, I didn't necessarily find this. My dad found this. These sheds are probably like 10 years old, but a really nice 10-point, definitely a match set. At one point, this buck was he was probably a bruiser. I don't know, obviously not a huge buck. I don't know, 130 maybe, but definitely a good deer for Tennessee. And I would have loved to know all those years ago what this buck turned into the next year. So it's also important to say I've just kind of recently got into like seriously shed hunting. So a lot of these are from like last year, and some of them are even from this year. Like I'll go ahead and get this one out of the way. This is a buck that I had coming into camera all year this year. He's a pretty solid deer. He's not big, but he's just an interesting old deer, like a really old deer. A dark shed. And he actually showed up one day on camera and was missing a side. And I was like, that's interesting. Like this was early season too. This was probably, I don't know off the top of my head, I'll say mid-October. It wasn't that long ago. And yeah, he showed up missing a side. Just so happened when I went down to put cameras in the, when I went down to put batteries in the camera, the shed was sitting about 30 yards in front of the camera. So definitely a cool little piece there that I found this year, and didn't even have to wait till shed season. These next two here, I'm not sure if they're a match set or not. I don't really think they are. They're similar, and I found them both last year, but one of them's in way better condition than the other one. They were found like 80 yards apart, so that kind of made me think they were a match set, but there's just little differences in them. And funny enough, these were found in the spot that I killed my big 12 this year, so a lot of cool history with that spot, but definitely a solid deer. And I got a theory of which one that this might have been this year. I'm not 100% sure, but definitely a cool pair of sheds to find. So these next two are rather insignificant, but this is one that I found just here in the woods, so that's kind of cool. Obviously not a very big buck, but it's something. And these are almost even cooler to find because you got to think, how difficult is it to spot that little bitty antler and all those leaves and stuff you've got at this time of year. So definitely a pretty cool find. And I'll be honest, on this one, I don't really even know where it came from. I was just looking downstairs to find sheds to put in this video, and this one just happened to be sitting there, and I think that's a pretty cool one. Obviously not a very big buck, but definitely a interesting looking antler. And this is most of the sheds and stuff that I found over the years, not all of them. I've got a couple that just didn't make any sense to put in the video because they're like this, except even less cool. So I didn't really figure those were like big hits to put in the video. But moving on, now we are going to get into deadheads. That's all the sheds that I decided to include in this video. So we got a couple cool deadheads we're going to show off. This would be the first one. I also found this one last year. He's got these really cool, I would call them flyers, coming off this back main beam. That's a really unique buck. That's how I'd put it. He's definitely unique. And funny enough, this buck was found the same exact day that the buck that I'm looking at right now on the ground was found. And you guys are going to want to see that one. Also, really interesting thing about this buck, near the pedicles here, some people call this the knurling. There's a bunch of different names for it, but it's got a ton of it. I mean, really, I'd say infested the main beams. They're everywhere. None of them were that big because this deer most likely wasn't that old, but still pretty interesting. So second to last, we've got to talk about this little guy. There's not really that much significant about him, but it's just one thing that makes him kind of cool. He's got a bunch of moss around his head, obviously, as you can see. I don't know how old this deadhead is. I'm assuming it's 2 or 3 years old, but it could be older. I found this as well last year, so yeah, not something super significant, but I figured you guys probably want to see that, so I decided to include it. Now, what I'm holding in my hand is the Piece de Resistance. It's the grand finale, and it's definitely a stud of a deer. So here he is. I scored this deer at I think 137. So the score on this deer is not really that ridiculous, but look at him. Obviously this deer goes a little bit more than just score. This deer's got a lot of character, very unique, very big buck. Another thing on this deer, and it's hard to show it off much because the skulls that I have here are all broken, but he's got a fully intact skull. And if I had one of my other European mounts with a fully intact skull, I could show you. This guy's actual skull is huge. So I'm assuming this was a very old deer. I don't know, maybe 6.5, 7.5. Obviously, when deer get older too, they typically will grow some trash and grow some just oddities that you wouldn't see in your average buck. I mean, you look down where his brow tines should be, he's got a bunch of junk too. It's just a really, really interesting buck. And I'm telling you, this thing weighs probably 5, 6 pounds. Like, this is a pretty heavy deadhead. And I mean, you look at the mass, it's kind of ridiculous on this beam, almost webbed. This is a really interesting buck. And it's funny, he's only got 10 or 11 scoreable points, but I shot 2 good bucks already this year. I limited out. I shot my 140-inch 10 and I shot my 150-inch 12. I probably would have taken this deer over both of those because truly to me, this is a once-in-a-lifetime buck. Like, big 10s, big 12s, they come and go. Stuff like this, it's to me, it's just a little bit different. But yeah, appreciate you guys for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. I just figured this would be a cool one to make with the late winter, early spring shed hunting that we're going to be doing, and hopefully you guys enjoy those videos too. If you liked what you've seen, go ahead, like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. I'm going to get all these sheds back inside. Some of them I have hanging up on the wall. Some of them I've just got laying around, but I need to get them put back where they're supposed to go. Y'all have a great rest of your day. I'm out. Peace.